Hello everyone, hope everyone's safe. We're just here to give you some tips about how to survive your NQT year. My name's Gemma and I teach science.
And I'm Ashley and I'm a textiles teacher.
And I'm Freya and I teach art and photography. Oh, it's me. So what do you think teachers spend their time on and how much time do they spend on each one? So what we'd like you to do now is to pause the video. We'll give you about 5-10 minutes of thinking time. You've got a full 15 to discuss ideas between yourselves, and then obviously Sean can pause it here for you to do that.
So actually what they spend their time on, so most of the time, which wouldn't really be a surprise, is actually most teachers spend their time teaching, and this is broken down into instructing, so actually giving instructions in class, helping students one-to-one, as well as walking around the classroom and doing that. Obviously, you might be not doing that at the moment with the current situation, but that's what's supposed to be happening. You'd be surprised that apparently we should have 23 minutes of personal time. Again, you might not feel like you do that as an NQT, but again, you should really make sure you have time for yourself. Again, marking takes up a fair bit of time. That's 33 minutes of a day, whether that's grading papers, marking work, or giving verbal feedback as well. Planning your lessons, so again, half the time as well, before you teach your lessons, you need to plan them. Prep takes 30 minutes, and again, talking with colleagues about what they've done or deciding who's teaching what might take a bit of time as well. And again, discipline within your lesson. No lesson goes without behaviour management, and so you have to have some of that time in there. So discipline apparently takes 18 minutes. However, some people might argue that varies from class to class. And again, you will probably have break time or lunchtime duties once a week or a couple of times a week as well. So yeah, that's kind of overall what we would spend our workload on.
And then you've got time at the end for a gin.
Yeah.
Okay, so PMT, most of your time. So obviously it's planning, marking and teaching, and we're going to talk about each one of these, just giving you a little bit of tips, what we might do, what you might want to do. So I'll just start on that one for you now.
So planning, I quite enjoy this. I think that takes up quite a lot of time, but I think it's not the worst time to spend. I don't know if everyone else agrees, but I quite enjoy the planning part. So we've got to plan what you're teaching, but also remember to plan how you're going to teach it. So I find like I need to spend a little bit of time thinking of the logistics of how the lesson will actually work. How will the students collect their resources? How are they going to tidy them away, the resources, without it getting chaotic at any point? And there's different ways in which you can plan. So there's most people have like a long-term plan of an idea of what they're going to cover in the whole term or the whole year. And then short-term plans that are much more detailed of how the lesson is specifically going to go. And I tend to just have like a document with a table on and just the topics kind of listed for the long-term plans, and that might link to some specific resources that I need to get ready for those lessons, and maybe like links to health and safety if I'm doing anything practical in the textiles room that I need to consider. And then on my short-term plans, I just use my PowerPoints. I don't know, I guess you guys might do something different, maybe you could say. But I just use my PowerPoints, and on there I make sure that I've got all my learning objectives on there, and that I've got my key questions that I don't want to forget to ask them. I put them on my PowerPoints, and it just helps me think about like I don't need to remember every single thing because they're already on the PowerPoint, so it just helps me a lot with that. Even put timings for tasks, I can put that on the PowerPoint, and it helps me and reminds me, and the students can see it in front of them, how long they're going to take on each task. We've been talking here about like sharing resources as well. Like I'm the only textile teacher in the school, so I find it quite difficult to share schemes of work and things. I have to make it all for myself. But I do use the last teacher's schemes of work, and I just adapt them, and I find things on tests or online, or people on Facebook groups tend to like dump loads of great resources on there. So I'm like, don't try and like everything will have been done before, and just try and collect as much as you can and just adapt it to your style of teaching rather than making everything from scratch. That's what I find. I don't know if you guys have anything to add on planning, or if you're doing pretty similar.
No, I'm probably the same. Obviously, in the department, we work all on the same scheme, so we can understand if one teacher's already done it. is that going to work for the rest of us? But we all use the same scheme, and we have a weekly thing saying how many lessons is this going to take, what equipment do we need. We send that to our technician who can help us get ready, so that takes up some more of your time. So it's planning in when you need to ask your technician to do something, planning in when you need to do something. That's what we do with
similar
ours.
in science, where you
Yeah.
can share schemes of work.
Yeah, we share schemes of work. And then one little tip that I noticed last year was I was getting through lessons, but I necessarily was over planning, and so I get so far through, and then the next lesson I'd forget where I got to. So in my planner I make a little note at the end of every lesson of what slide I got up to or what task, just to help me actually next time be like, oh, I'll start again, because it could be, and I don't see them so I might see them on the Monday and I don't see them to the following Friday or the week after, and I've completely forgot what we're doing or what tasks I've done. So that's just something that helps me keep on task, and it's one less thing I have to store in my brain, as well as doing everything else that a teacher does.
That's a really good idea. And also having like some kind of 10-minute task up your sleeve, or a challenge activity for the ones that are going to get finished early, or if the class just runs a little bit shorter than you expect, especially this year. I don't know about your schools, but we're running double lessons, so we're having to fill double the time. So just having something up your sleeve in case one class does it quite quickly, to stretch them at the end.
Yeah.
Right, we'll move on then.
Okay, so marking. So I'm going to show you in 2 slides' time one of the ways that we've been marking in school. Obviously with COVID and everything that's going on at the minute, it's a lot easier and simple, but I'll do a full session on that in a second. So one thing we have been looking at, and not all teachers use it, but some teachers will, it does save a lot of time. It'll probably take you about half an hour at the beginning of your year, creating feedback codes. Now these codes can just be simple letters or numbers, and when you give your feedback you don't have to write full sentences. The students should have a copy of the codes. You can give them it after looking at their work or highlighting sections, and just simply put in that letter or number. They can go to the code and then they can reference it, and then that just helps you to speed up your marking process. You're not writing as much, but the kids know exactly what they're going to look for every time, and then they'll start to know what each code is. So 5 books at a time, so obviously getting more books out, you can start comparing, seeing which students have done what. It'll help you to mark better as well. You can also get some assessment put in there, see which kids are performing, which kids may be underperforming, who do you need to help out as well, because with classes they are all different. So going back to your planning in that sense, it's good to also just make a note of who's doing what and where you're up to. So 1 question at a time.
That's for it's put summative assessments. That's when they've done like an end of assessment test, that you'd mark all of the same question for each child first. So then you've got it like on a
level playing field, and you're comparing answer to answer rather than student to student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then self-assessment and peer assessment quizzes. So we use quizzes a lot over every single subject. It's used on the same app. It's just the quizzes app. You can plan different quizzes every week if you want to. You can plan them as starters. And these just help you to know where the kids' learning is. It's just a great way to see, obviously with each class as well, which class might need more support, which student might need more support, and it's just overall, it's just great to have that. And if you need it for any assessment grades, marks for Sims, anything like that, that's good for those as well. So online COVID proof Google Classroom is something I'm going to show you, as I said, in a few slides time. This is great for, obviously, if you don't want to be touching students' books, obviously trying to keep everything as clean and apart as possible. It's a great tool to have to do your marking. Students can upload work, you can create assignments, they can upload it to a stream, and you can constantly monitor what they're doing as well. So it's good just to give quick, simple feedback. You can return that work, and it's really good. Other thing, so never do in 2 hours what your pupils can do in 2 minutes. So it's just peer and self-assessment. Obviously the students can touch their own books, they can get they can do verbal assessment, talk to each other, because their ideas and helping each other is going to boost their knowledge as well. So getting that marking and that self and peer assessment is also really important.
So again, teaching. Most of you will have done at least some teaching last year, and you probably found that actually when you came to teaching, a lot of it was you didn't know how long stuff was going to take, you didn't know kind of what the students already know because it was new to you. And again, kind of this year you've probably done the same, planning too much rather than too little. I think everyone's kind of comfort blanket is actually, if I've got too much, even if kids fly through it, they've got stuff to go on to. Whereas actually, I don't want to be stood at the front and kids be finished and be like, oh, right, what do I do next? But again, as you get more experience and as you go on, I don't know about anyone else, but I found now that actually I can do a lot more stuff off the cuff, kind of improvise there on the spot. So if I don't plan as much, there's stuff I in my head like, well, I actually get them to do that, or I could develop their answer and understanding a bit more by doing that. And again, plan too hard, not too easy. Don't set your kids, say for example, you know kind of what level they're at, don't kind of pitch it at that level, pitch it a little bit above, give them some challenge, because again, they're there to work, they're not there to just have a nice easy time. Again, obviously don't make it too difficult for them, don't be the case that they get put off. It's finding that right balance, and again, the only way you're going to do that is by getting to know your classes and doing that. Again, differentiate, each class is completely different, so what you might do one lesson in one class, even though you're using the same resources, the way you teach it, the way you scaffold it, the way you kind of deliver it might be different. And again, differentiation does not mean several different tasks for every different age group. You can differentiate in several different ways. Questioning, it can be how much you scaffold, how much you do everything else. Okay, it's just kind of how to bear that in mind. And so one thing when we teach is kind of how long tasks would take. And generally the rule of thumb is, I believe, that a task that a student does shouldn't be more than twice their reading age. So for example, if you've got a year 7, they shouldn't be doing one task for that long, more than 22 minutes. Now again, this might differ from subject to subject. For example, in food, you can't just cook for 20 minutes and then do something else. You'd have to spend the full lesson doing that. So obviously take this advice and kind of suit it to your subject. And again, transitions with tasks. Students just go from one task to one task to one task is going to be very output, and it's a lot on their brains. So again, have a little bit of downtime where you're going to explain and transition them nicely between tasks. So it might be a case of you give them 5-minute tasks, go through it, then you bring in a new concept, and then they have a go at that new concept later on. Kind of give them good equal time. Good uses of time. So if you feel like you haven't got enough time, again, start the year, get to know your classes. So whether it be a case of getting to know them in terms of subject or outside of a subject as well. So for example, when I meet my year 7s for the first time, they all don't know each other, I don't know them. At the end, we do kind of a fact about ourselves, or we might find out something that we've got in common with the person next to us, something that's different, just to get them to know each other and get them more familiar with you. And again, while you're doing that and getting to grips with what they actually need to do, set them something they can do on their own that allows you to mark their work and actually be able to give them feedback on that. So it might be you give them an independent research task on a particular area. You might give them a quiz to do. You might get them to do some questions. You might get them to do a presentation. Something that, again, that you can give them feedback on straight away, and whilst they're doing that task, you can then mark other tasks or help other students within that class.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you just a little bit of Google Classroom. Obviously, everyone might not need this resource. We've just found it extremely helpful, especially within COVID. So what I'm going to do now, this is obviously on an iPad, so I'm going to show you how I would use it within my subject, which is art. So for instance, I've got here is one of my marking sheets, and every student will have this sheet. So we have our code on the left hand side. I would just simply put that letter, and then obviously each letter explains what that student would need to do. Now it might be a bit vague just giving them this as an example, but it works really well with what I'm about to do on Classroom here. So here is one of my groups. As you can see within it, I've got lots of different work set up. I've got different assignments, so all of these are set by me. Now it comes into different things, so I've got a stream where all the work is. Now all the students can access this. I can upload images, I can upload videos, I can upload links, anything that is going to help my students out. And I try to keep it within an order so the students know what we are doing every lesson. If a student is off, they can see what is in every lesson. Here I've attached for them, they actually have their presentation which they can use, so they've always got resources to go to. So in our classwork section at the moment, here we have some assignments that I've set up. So when I want my students to upload work, so I can mark it, this is where they would come to, and each of them would then upload any work. So for instance, I have some of my students here. I can select a piece of work and then my image comes up. in the top corner I have a pencil mark. Now when I click on this, it duplicates the image. Obviously no work is going to be destroyed in this process because it's all digital, and once it's loaded you have the option to draw on it. Now this is an exceptional piece of work for a year 9 art student. Obviously there might be a few things that I want them to work on, so maybe adding some bolder lines or darkening the legs, so I may circle it. Going back to my mark sheet, I then will find, what do I need to give them? So it could be tone, so I'll just put a T because I want them to add some darker shades. What else could we give them? Their shape might be really well, so I might not necessarily write that on there, but I can save this now. It will then go back to them. Just give it a few seconds, and then I can also write on there the things that they've been doing well, what I'd like them to improve on, and it is give them that edited version. So now I can type for them saying what they did well. So their shape was amazing, so I'll just put S, their presentation, and then for that EBI, so even better if, I'll just give them that T to add that darker tone. I can give them that comment, and then I can return that piece of work to that student, and then they can work on that again and resubmit any improvements that they might have done, or if they need just an extra bit of support, they can just return it and say, am I doing this right? And it's very simple. So I'm just going to return us back to our slides now. So as I said, it's really easy. You can set lots of work on there. It's good for students who may be off as well, just to keep up with it. You can add graphs, websites, demonstrations. It's just a really great platform.
Right, if you go back onto that Google Classroom, you can also show that you can put in the mark there as well. So you can put in your grades ready for your updates ready, and Google Classroom saves those into like a mark sheet. And then all you need to do when it comes to update time of year is take all those marks and put them into your Sims, or you might have to take an average of those marks, but it's going to collect them all for you, so you don't need separate mark sheets. So that it's also good for that as well.
Yeah, that's a great way to save some time. Another good thing as well is if you could be caught up with COVID or yourself, you can use this at home, and something with the assignments, you can set them deadlines and it will tell them when that deadline is due, so you can set it to the exact minute, you can set it to the right date, whatever you need to do, and that's something that you can then control when the students are handing in. You can see who's not handing in as well, which is also important because you want to make sure the students are doing their work, and you can just keep a full record. So it's probably one of the best pieces of equipment I've used. I don't know about you guys, but it's a good piece to use, especially in the current climate where you can't maybe interact and touch their books and be face to face and maybe necessarily sit with them to help them fully. So it's a great tool.
Also, planning in advance, you can schedule things on Google Classroom, so you can plan things to come on in a week's time for those students to get those bits of homework, or especially when we were working from home, easy that you could kind of set things to come on and you wouldn't have to be by your computer all day, or you could set it to come on for a time you know that you're going to be pretty busy that time, so set in advance to upload that assignment to Classroom. It could be quite useful then.
And the students should get notifications when you return something as well, so there's no excuse of, I haven't seen it. The students should get notifications saying Miss Johnson or Miss Blackburn has uploaded this to Google Classroom, she left you a comment, and they can view the comment, and again they can reply back to the comments. You can have a little discussion on that forum as well.
Yeah, and you can also add other teachers into it. So if you want to have your head of department, if you want to have like a higher ALG or senior team member within there, you can, teaching assistants. So I know within art, our teaching assistants, they have an art book and they keep up and do the same work as the student, just to show the student what they might need to do, have that more one-on-one support. They know what we're doing in the class to help, and obviously to refer to, all of those sort of things. It's about helping you, helping the students, and helping those who are obviously going to support your class as well. Want to move on?
Mm-hmm. So if you use this time to reflect then, and pause the video here, and if you take some time to write down or think about some of the tips that we've offered and see how they might relate to your subject, take a few minutes on that, and then reflect as a group and maybe share more ideas on how, on good practice, and how you might use some of these platforms or ways of planning, marking, teaching in the future, and how it might help your subject.
Yeah, just see if, because sometimes you can cross over with your subjects. There might be something that you might not necessarily do in your subject, but it can also help a different subject. So this is just a great time just to sit now, have a good think, and then come back together and have that conversation. So roughly about 15-20 minutes just to have that chat. Okay, and our top 10 tips for teachers. So keep ahead, so never leave anything till tomorrow, and get what you can done in that day. Okay, don't spend all weekend working. Even God rests on the seventh day, so make sure you have that downtime. You might want to give yourself the nights off and work at the weekend, or you might just want to make sure you're getting everything done, staying in school, and nothing comes home with you. Use what's already there, so everything you want to do has probably been done before, so check other sites, as Ashley mentioned before, using Facebook, talking to other teachers, see what your department does. There may be old schemes where you can pull work from. It's all about just thinking smartly, not trying to do more work.
Prioritise your tasks and try and get your work done in school, whether it's like you come in a little bit early or stay a little bit later after school. I definitely would rather stay an hour after school and get the work done than take it home with me. Don't be afraid to say no to things that you're not going to be able to fit in your schedule, that aren't a priority. Hide if you have a lot to do, and find a quiet place to knuckle down.
Yeah, plan as a team. So for example, if you're teaching a lesson and someone else is teaching the same lesson, plan it together and share your resources. Again, it's all about, there's something already done. Someone might have a really good idea, just do that. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You should all have a mentor or someone that you can turn to within your departments. Again, they've been teaching for a longer time than you have. Go to them for advice, even if it's how do I teach this, or what do I do with this student, or how do I do this. Again, they're there to help you. Think outside the box. So again, most of the stuff you might come across is stuff that people do generally, but just because something isn't there before doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it. This year's the year to try stuff out and get how to see how things do stuff. So think outside the box, think about creative ways to do stuff. And again, practice makes perfect. You're not going to be great straight away. Teaching can be really good. You'll have bad days, you'll have good days. Some days it's the best job in the world, some days it's why am I doing this job? But again, over time, practice makes perfect, and you'll be fine in the end.
Okay, so lastly, just good luck and stay safe in this time. We've also just added our emails there for you, so if you want to contact us with any questions at all, that's each of us there, and also our departments that we're in. So any questions at all, please fire them our way. If it's just a generic one, just add us all in if you want to, or if it is aimed at our subject, just go for it and ask us anything.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.